Hello friends, in the topic which we talked about earlier in the shifting trends in cinema and entertainment business, where we talked about the kind of changes which have come in the cinema as well as the entertainment industry over the years. In that particular perspective, we talked about the changes which came in the 20th century, largely especially after the globalization, liberalization and privatization, and how the cinema as well as TV and other entertainment industry which are there, they in a way adapted to the changing situation in the 1990s. We also talked about the kind of changes which came in the framework of the technology as well, where we find that how the silent cinema, thereafter talkies, and also the kind of themes which were there in many of the films of that particular time. And when we talk about the changes, especially in the post-pandemic times, where we find that the coming of the OTT, the over-the-top platform, which has in a way revolutionized the cinema as well as the entertainment business. And there are some kind of critics, those who argue that OTT as a platform will not be able to match with the big budget films, because the big budget films, they are to be shown on the cinema screen. And the others, those who reject this idea, and they say that how OTT they have turned out to be some sort of a graveyard for the big budget films, and how the onslaught of the OTT will be taken up by the theatre owners and the people, those who are associated in the production of the big films. So when we talk about the kind of changes which have come over a period of time, and how these changes they have been adapted in that sense, then we realize that not only the arrival of the OTT, but at the same time other things which are happening in the context of the Indian films over a period of time have been responsible for these changes. And one of the most important concerns which has been there in the earlier times as well, and even now this has been talked about, is the way the women, they have been depicted in the films. And we find that how OTT has provided this kind of a window or an opportunity where women they have been shown in very powerful kind of roles as well, because generally we have seen that how heroines, they have been secondary to the hero in the films. And on the OTT platform, some of the series which have been made, they try to carve out an important place for the women in that particular series. And their role is not only seen in the framework of providing some kind of a relief or entertainment or glamour. And we also find that the arrival of the women-centric films during this particular period, as you can see on the screen as well, Gangubai Kathiawadi, Dhakad, Shabash, Mithu, Thappad, Panga, Chapak, Paglet, English Winglish. So all these films which have been made in the 21st century, and especially in the second decade of the 21st century, and they are trying to communicate some or the other concerns which is related to the women, and they are trying to communicate in a very sympathetic as well as in a sensitive manner, that how a person has to approach these issues in contemporary times. And we can see this clip from
just a slap, पर नहीं मार सकता. एक बाइट.
आमुज प्लीज, लेट हो रहा है यार.
टूट के हम दोनों में जो
अरे अमू, छोड़ दिया मैंने आज. You should have been there. घर तक के लिए वेट तो कर लो.
मैं स्लीपी हूँ.
मैं तो बिल्कुल स्लीपी नहीं हूँ. उसको विश्वास नहीं था कि कंपनी चला सकता है, समझा?
So when you see this particular film, which is sensitively portraying the kind of husband-wife relations in a particular home, and how an issue of thappad in a way makes them think about the kind of situation in which they are, and the woman realizes that how no one can in a way live with the kind of person she is, and no one can treat her in the way she has been treated by her husband. So this kind of a situation where there is a lot of pressure from the family, both the in-laws as well as the family of the girl, that how she should in a way reconcile her life with what all had happened as well. But she realizes that no one can do this kind of a thing with her where she can be slapped, and she is not able to in a way relate to this incident, and finally she is seeking some kind of a separation for herself. So a number of films during this particular period we see, many of them they have raised the issues of women, and another film called Shabash Mithu, which talks about the journey of a sports person, female sports person, and how she overcame a number of odds which were there. And we find that all these kinds of films which have been made in the recent times, they are trying to convey some kind of a story where in a way women, they are to be shown in a comparatively more liberal space, and they are shown to be as people, those who can take their own decisions. And such portrayals have been very, very sensitive, and these sensitive portrayals have in a way led the society to think about such kind of issues. We also find that because of the arrival of OTT, we find that in a way they do not have any kind of a bias when such kind of presentations they are being made, and it is in a way an inclusive medium. And the beauty of the platform is the freedom and the transparency it offers in a way. And we also see that how the urban empowerment of women, it is also being talked about, and this has also to be related with the way more and more women they have entered the film industry or the entertainment industry, and how many as script writers and directors, they are trying to narrate their own stories. And at the same time they have also been able to find backers for their ideas, the people, those who are in a way ready to produce such kind of stories which have been written by women with a refreshingly point of view. So in that sense we find that there is some kind of a paradigm shift in the kind of content which is there, and how this content, we find that how women are leading this kind of a content. And many of them, they are not about the family drama which is there, or the usual saas bahu kind of affair which we find in these films. And if we tend to see the kind of figures, we find that how a number of OTT platforms, they have initiated a number of web series which are concerning the women, and some of the leading heroines of the earlier times, like Raveena Tandon in Aranyak, and Madhuri Dixit in The Fame Game, or Huma Qureshi in Maharani, how all these actresses, they have also become part of these web series, where they are trying to in a way not only exhibit their acting skills, but at the same time how other women of the contemporary times can relate to this women. You can see this film clip which is from Aranyak.
Sir, my daughter could be in danger. पूरी जिंदगी को साइड में रखा एक बड़े केस के लिए, और ये बड़ा केस आता भी है कब, जब मैं उस कुर्सी से उठ जाती हूँ.
अगर कस्तूरी जी अपना लीव कैंसिल करना चाहती है तो आई कैन स्टॉप हर, लेकिन ये इन्वेस्टिगेशन मैं ही लीड करूंगा और ये बात पूरी टीम को क्लियर होनी चाहिए. क्यों कस्तूरी?
हाँ सर, देखते हैं.
ये किसी ने कराया है.
As one can see in the film clip, that how women, they are ready to take up responsibility on their own, and they are not shying away from any kind of a work which is being assigned to them, and how more and more women, they can come into this kind of a stream where they are able to express themselves. And then when we talk about the kind of research which has been done in the recent times, we find that some of the concerns, like one of the research firm Nielsen, which has been involved in a way doing research, and they have argued that despite channels they exhausted their bank of the episodes, and the overall media consumption during the isolation period, it jumped by nearly 60%. And how Doordarshan and other channels, they were re-airing their earlier programs like Ramayana, Mahabharat and Vyomkesh Bakshi, and how they were also being liked by others, that they topped the TRP ratings in that sense. And we also see that DD or Doordarshan during this time saw some kind of a 650% growth in the viewership in 1 week, and it was also became one of the most channels which had been watched during this time. Another concern with regard to the OTT platform is the issue of censorship, that whether there are a lot of debates with regard to the necessity of censorship and how it is imperative to strike a balance between the artistic freedom and the censorship. So that kind of an issue with too much freedom and in a way no censorship would result in the display of content which might be inappropriate for the children, and it may have harmful impact on society as a whole. So this kind of a debate where the censorship on the OTT platform has been talked about, and whether we should have any kind of a mechanism or machinery to regulate the OTT platform. So not much in the practical side had been achieved, though there have been some kind of a theoretical things which have been done in this regard. But the people, those who are in a way talking about the issue of censorship, they also talk about that how if we place restrictions in the form of censorship, that may lead to kind of a restriction on the freedom of expression and the narrow boundaries of creativity which are there. And we all of us are aware that how technology is there in the framework of the internet and the mobiles, and hidden cameras, they are there in the context of the video clips. So censorship definitely is one of the important concerns when one is talking about the issues concerning the OTT platform. And the people, those who are in a way those who think in the framework of positives of censorship, they argue that how it will potentially reduce the hate speech in the society, it will protect children from consuming harmful content and provide an added layer of security to country's global image. And those who reject it, they say that it is some kind of a check on the freedom of expression, as well as it is also a check on the artistic liberty. So we find that you both have the supporters of censorship, and on the other hand you also have the people, those who are rejecting censorship, that censorship should not be there, it is not important or necessary from that point of view. You can now see this film clip from Patal Lok.
और इन चारों को अरेस्ट करने का प्रोसीजर शुरू करो। चार्ज क्या रहेगा सर? कंस्पिरेसी टू मर्डर।
Target of this failed assassination attempt could have been journalist Sanjeev Mehra.
आपको किसी पे कोई शक है? कोई पुरानी दुश्मनी?
नहीं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं। चारों की हिस्ट्री शीट निकलवा।
So this film clip basically, or this entire series, it in a way shows the kind of violence which is there in the society. And there is a Patal Lok, or the third sphere, where everything is possible. And so this kind of a violence which is being exhibited, and it raises a number of questions whether such kind of violence is to be shown at any kind of a platform. So we find that though some kind of a guidelines they have been framed, and but these guidelines, they do not contain any provisions for the censorship of the content. And also the OTT platform, they are only required to comply with the self classification of the content with the appropriate age groups classification and content descriptor for each content displayed on OTT platform. So the films or the content which is first released on the OTT and which is subsequently broadcasted on television will need to be in compliance with the Cable Television Network Regulation Act 1995 and the Cable Television Network Rules 1994. But if it is only being shown on the OTT platform, then it is not mandatory to procure any CBFC certification for any film or content which is directly or first released on the OTT platform. So in that sense, we find that there is no censorship on the OTT platform, but if any content on the OTT platform, it contravenes Article 19(2) of the Constitution, and the government under Section 69A of the IT Act and IT Blocking Rules 2009, it has all the powers to issue the directions for blocking the public access of any information through any computer resource, and has power to remove such content which is objectionable in nature. So time and again it has been talked about whether there is some kind of a need to regulate the OTT platforms, and the courts, they have interpreted the application of Article 19(2) of the Constitution vis-a-vis censorship to include restraints on such content which is against the sovereignty, integrity and security of India, or which is defamatory in nature, in contempt of court, or leads to incitement of any offence. So we find that how the enactment of the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code in 2021, and how the guidelines, they provide for a 3-tier grievance redressal mechanism, where you find that on the first level it includes the self-regulation, level 2 talks about it adds self-regulation via an independent self-regulating body, and the level 3, it comprises an interministerial committee supervision system. So we find that how over a period of time the issue of censorship is being also talked about on the OTT platforms as well, and how OTT platforms, they have seen some kind of a surge in the subscriptions during the times of pandemic and thereafter, and they provide a lot of entertainment options for the people during this particular period. And we also find that the content as well as the range of programs which is available on the OTT platform is far more superior when we compare it to the kind of programs which are available on television. And we also find that how many of the TV and the film series which are especially commissioned by and released exclusively on these platforms. So with its cheap and the flexible subscription fees and a variety of video library, OTT is becoming very important for an individual viewer, one who can view the OTT platform while traveling, when one can see films on the mobile phones as well, apart from having these kinds of connections in their own television sets as well. So we find that how industry is in a way trying to cope with it, and how the IT giants, they are adjusting their websites to allow their clients to have access to any kind of a cyber communication. And we also see that some of the players, those who are there in this field, and some of them their paid content is made free of cost, along with numerous kind of options for the online content, because people were there to, in a way, to consume that content which was available. And some of the companies like Z5, they came up with an initiative, Be Calm, Be Entertained. In this, they provided the premium content accessible to consumers for free. And we find that Disney Plus was also launched in India, collaborating with the Hotstar, and acquired 80 lakh paid subscriptions. So we find that during this particular period, these kinds of changes came, and OTT platforms and digital media, they have already been expanding the customer base, location and the demographics. And when we talk about the various age groups during the lockdown, millennials, which are born between 1981 and 1996, and Generation Z, which is born between 1997 and 2012, these were the groups which were most into the streaming. And Generation Z groups, they have done more binge watching with more content consumption of 4.5 hours than that of the millennials, who consumed content for 3.66 hours. And the 60% of the millennials and Generation Z stream video daily, as compared to just 30% for baby boomers. Baby boomers are those who are born between 1946 and 1964. So we find that all these kinds of terminologies which have been used for the people, those who have been born in different years, and how all these people, those who have been born in different years, they are reacting in a different manner to the arrival of OTT and other such kind of platforms. But we also see that how Indian stories, they are in a way now screened at a global level, and writers, they are also telling their stories from some kind of a unique vantage point, then they get recognition they deserve, and they know that every story can find its audience without any limitations or format or duration. And we also have seen that the OTT platforms, they provide opportunity to bridge the cultures and people through the authentic and relatable stories, and audience is receptive to these stories that focus on women as well, and censorship issues are also not there. But we also see that because of the excessive use of the screen time, and how it is affecting the emotional and the physical health of the people, and it is causing a lot of stress and also increased inactive behavior, obesity, sleep disorders, and addictions to these platforms or binge watching. So we find that it is in a way, this kind of an overuse is also affecting the audience in a negative manner, and how the channels, they are not only catering to the adult population, but they are also offering content to the kids as well. And many a times we find that many of the programs are western centric, which in a way can affect the children in a negative manner. So we find that the OTT platforms, they lack control and gatekeeping, which is a huge requirement for the laws and the measures for the children which are exposed to OTT. And how with the arrival of these platforms, a number of changes in the consumer behavior are also happening, and it has become pervasive in the life of in the daily life of the consumer. So in a way, consumers are in a way are also adopting the newer technologies, but are also facilitating entertainment at the next level as well. Then we find that how when you embrace the digital technology, it is also likely to modify the existing habits, and the internet speed and its availability is crucial for the easy access to the digital entertainment. So when we see that how the OTT and the telecom players, they are working well toward the ensuring a perfect as well as the seamless experience, and there is some kind of a hype in internet infrastructure and improved quality of population of our nation. More users are expected to join the digital consumption team in the coming future. So when we talk about the kind of future which can happen in this particular field in the way of prospects, we find that the future growth of the industry depends upon the financial stability of the viewers as well as the economic health of the country. And the development of a new digital era, including the creation of a better and more reliable mode of consumption, and also meeting requirement of consumers, are going to add value to the development of digital economy in future as well. And how over the years we have seen that how smartphones are becoming new destination for the television consumption as well, and the format of the web series, storytelling, cast and themes are different than the television content which attracted most of the viewers. So in this way we find that new kinds of viewers, they have been added, housewives or the employees, those who are working from home, and the children, those who are learning through home through the e-learning apps. And how it has also become convenient in that sense that without going out of their homes, the content is available on their mobiles, and how India has in a way become one of the important countries where OTT platform is developing in a positive direction. And according to India Brand Equity Foundation report 2020, OTT sector in India saw a 30% rise in the number of paid subscribers from 22.2 million to 29 million between March and July 2020. So in that sense, India is now only second to China in terms of internet users, and the other data as well which are trying to communicate that how the internet users, they are increasing day by day. Deloitte in 2015 has given this kind of a data where more and more people, they are using internet. And it has been in a way suggested that by 2024 industry is expected to reach around rupees 3 trillion at a growth rate of 9%. So scholars, they have tried to see, like as Spark and Y Kwan, they have argued that OTT services are focusing on the local markets, and that is why they are using multiple strategies such as localization strategy, partnership strategy, and content differentiation strategy to attract the local audience. And we also see that how on the OTT platforms, films are not only available in the multiple regional languages, but in the international content is also available to us, and how it is OTT platform is available to us anytime and anywhere. So this is the kind of benefit which is there, and this is how the things have been in the recent times after the pandemic, and how OTT is in a way increasing its reach over television and other conservative entertainment industry. So now I would like to end the discussion. Thank you very much.